Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Mark from Ichiban Games, and we are getting more into the rules of Alchemazam. Thanks for wanting to learn, and remember, join the Discord, and also check out that game database so you can go and make that deck. Click all those timestamps in the bottom to go and find what areas that you need for this section of the video. Don't forget you can play the game on Untapped.in, which is free, and Tabletop Simulator, which you can get on Steam, which is not free. But yeah, let's do this. But first, here's the disclaimer, because disclaimer. So let's talk about spell and instant cards. Spell and instant cards are cards in your deck that give you little advantages, where you could go and hurt a creature, or you can draw cards, or you could destroy something, whatever. So the types of cards that there are spells which can be played on your turn, and then instants that can be played on any player's turn. And that could be from in combat, or it could be advancing to the next turn phase, or in response to, say, if a player is playing a spell or something on one of your creatures or whatnot, but then you play something in response, like a cancel spell or whatever, and that's where it goes on the stack. So let's check that out for how that goes. So the way that the stack goes is that, like, I have this Flame Spirit right here, and let's say that it's this player's turn, and they cast the spell of Fist of the Gods, which would go and destroy that Flame Spirit. So there's that. Well, I have a chance to go and respond, which I've got to revoke the tongue. So I'm going to sacrifice these two, and I'm going to put this on the stack, which would cancel this. Now, the stack would basically go where it's first in, last out. That's how it goes for the stack. So he wants to go in and kill my creature. I want it not to happen, so I'm going to go and get rid of it. This card is going to resolve before this card is going to resolve. So this card is going to destroy this card, and so my guy lives. That's what would happen. But let's just go and advance the stack even more. So let's say that he even, let's say that this was a scenario where he would turn this card to stone, on top of that as an instant. So what would happen is this. It's the first in, last out. He wants to go and destroy my card. He goes and he will try to, he'll try and destroy my card. I will try and stop that, but then he tries to turn it to stone. Well, this would happen first of the Gorgon Stare. It would turn this creature to stone. This card would go off to stop the Fist of the Gods, which would stop it from getting destroyed, but this creature is still turned to stone. So that is how the order of operations would go. If I went and I did another one of those, basically what would happen is I would have my cancel spell cancel out the Gorgon Stare, and this cancel spell cancel out the Fist of the Gods, and my wonderful little Flame Spirit would be A-okay, no problem. So, since we're done with the stack, let's talk about the differences of magic and alchemic. So, basically, this is really more or less something that has to do with, like, creature abilities and stuff like that, because there's a couple different kinds of abilities, being where it is magical, alchemic, or physical. But basically, when it comes to the spells and instants, they're always usually going to be magical. But there are some instances that it might have in the hierarchy, with the card types and stuff, that it is alchemic. And what that just has to do is between spell proof and anti-targeting. Things that are spell proof cannot be targeted by magic spells, and things that are anti-targeting can't be subject to target for any alchemic spells. So, but spell proof can be targeted by alchemic spells, and magic can hit anti-targeting. And so it's just one cancels the other kind of feel is really what that is. And alchemic castings are basically a slight more physical kind of spell other than straight up magical. So next would be cancel spells. I showed you some cancel spells. Basically, they stop the spells of abilities or other spells or triggers from happening. That is mainly that there. And then there's a targeting versus static versus field spells. So if I'm going to go and target something, basically, let's say if it had spell proof, I wouldn't be able to go and target it. And there is that. Static spells just happen because they're just going on. Let's say it would be some sort of trigger that could occur or something like that. And then a field spell would just straight up target the field. So I'm going to go and show a little bit about that because the field spells bypass pretty much a lot of certain stuff. Okay, so when it comes to field spells, let's say that this creature here had spell proof and anti-targeting. I wouldn't be able to go and hit it with anything alchemic or physical or magical or whatever. So, the only thing I could go and really do is just do like a field spell, like say trade-off here. If I was to go and do trade-off, it says this spell targets the field. Well, the field can never have spell proof. It can never have anti-targeting, anything like that. So it's going to bypass whatever this is, and it will affect it, where basically I would have to sacrifice my dude. That's basically what would happen. So that's the thing. Like, the way that it works with how that goes, like, it can bypass some of those things. The only way to stop that from happening is to play a cancel spell. And that's how that goes. And let's say it was something like Transmute was played, right? Transmute's going to go and affect something where it would get a treasure trove for them up on the field that way. It doesn't affect me. Like, it's not affecting any kind of like target. It's just doing a thing. So the only real way to do something like that is that this spell it needs to be canceled. So there's that too. So that's another thing where it doesn't hit the field or it doesn't hit a target. It just does it. So just be aware of some of the way that the card text goes on some of these. Next, we move on to creatures and objects. Creatures are fixtures that you summon. It's going to be the main focus of your combat. And that is how you can go and lessen your opponent's life total existentially. So that's that there. When a creature attacks, it will turn. Basically this. It's going to do that. When it's turned, it cannot block. So damage will just go through. So basically, like with my creature here, if these dudes right here were turned and I was like, okay, I'm going to go and attack, what's going to end up happening, these guys here can't block. That's basically how that works. So yeah. If I was to target attack, I still could target attack those. But anyway, all attack goes directly to a player. When it comes to target attacking, I can choose where damage will go. The last thing to know about creatures is they can have static or activated abilities. as well as certain empowerments and attributes and powers. To do an activated ability, some cards might need to turn to use those activated abilities. You might have to spend some resources or whatever too. So that's how that. And on to objects. Objects are not creatures. They are things that are on your field that they do have an attack, a defense, and special defense, but they are things like boulders or spiked ice walls, stuff like that. There can also be a couple other things too. They interact with things on the field though, and that's how it works. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, where we have this guy right here. He's a stonesmith. And stonesmith, basically what he does is he'll take this boulder, and stonesmith will throw this boulder at this archrachnid. So he's basically, he'll throw it, and boom, it'll whack that guy, and, it breaks, he's dead, blah, blah, blah. There could be some other objects like this one. This is a player emblem. It's a symbol. It's supposed to go and represent the player. It happens for things like, say, Mirages of Demise there, where this fireball was to go at my face. Basically, that spell would create 3 of these image creatures and then this player emblem. Basically, you would do the shell game of how this works, and we would pick one to the player, and if they pick that emblem, then it goes through and hits me. If it doesn't, it does a thing. So let's say it was this, that they're wrong, and so that would fizzle is how that works. But basically, that is to represent if they picked me, it would hit me in my face. So, just another little thing about what a certain object could be. Next, we're talking tokens and some generated counters and resources and whatever. So, tokens are basically anything that is not from your deck that comes into the game. There would be, it's usually represented by a blue symbol for the set. So, yeah, that's how you look in terms of rarity. But tokens and counters are always generated by other effects. So, gold and glyphs, treasure troves, and arcane tomes can also be generated outside the ingredient phase. They're not tokens, but they can still be generated outside, like the way that tokens do. So do note that that's how that goes. All resources that come in, that's tokens and other, just ingredients in general, will always come in turned on your tableau for when that is. But it won't in the field area. And then the counters themselves can come in many forms, where that's why we have dice on the side. And they could be +1 or minus, stuff, or basically power counters. So, which power counters are its own little resource for creatures to do certain things. And then when a token dies or goes off the field or whatever, it doesn't go like into a graveyard or into a deck or whatever. It goes off the field. It's banished. It's gone. It's not coming back. There's only a few certain exceptions of stuff, like say a contain ability or whatever. So then there's tokens where it's creatures that are morphed. And morph tokens, it's basically signifying a new form. It goes right on top of the creature. That creature doesn't go to the graveyard or anything. It's just that new creature. If that creature was to die, then they would go to the graveyard. Stuff like that. But this, it would just, you would attach all the enchantments and equipments and, counters and stuff to that creature. It is still that old creature, but it's the new form of it, is how that works. And then there's fusion tokens. So fusions of any kind, there's ones that are fusion tokens and ones that are not fusion tokens. But in terms of fusion in general, fusion tokens are attached to a card. It's staggered, and that's how that works, where it wouldn't have any of those tokens or anything like that transfer over unless really noted. Okay, so I am going to show you some morphing tokens, and I'm going to show you some fusing tokens. So we have here these tokens for this creature, which is the Psychosis Moth Larva. It gets power counters to go and do that. So once it reaches its power counter limit to go and do that, it could go and morph. Just go and take the token for the morphing, put it right on top, because that's how it works. It doesn't go to the graveyard because it's the original creature just in a upgraded form. So there's that. If it was to go and have any kind of counters on it, being say an attack or a defense, well, that is also going to stay on it. So let's say that it morphed and there's that. It would have these on it as well because it upgrades. And this thing is a Psychosis Moth Chrysalis. This thing upgrades twice is what happens for this, because then it would turn into this baby right here. And yeah, it would go right on. So yeah, Psychosis Moth. So that's what it turns into. Then let's go and I will show you about fusing. And these creatures right here, Wolf of Barren Wastes, they are all 1/2 creatures. Well, I want to fuse them. So, well, this is how it works for fusing. Say I'm fusing these creatures, they will be on top of each other, staggered, where it will turn into this creature right here, which is the Cerberus. Now, the reason I have this is because you will see that the Cerberus has plus on it, which that means it will add to all of these stacked creatures here, because it just combines it all. So this creature, all these Wolf of Barren Wastes will be like 1 attack each and 2 defense each. And so this will become a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's a 4/8 creature is what this becomes. So yeah, it's a big boy and it does some things. But that's how fusing works. They stack up and you take all the numbers and add them up. That's how you get the stats. Moving on, we have a lot of attributes and powers for this game. So the attributes that you'll see here, they will be all the little keywords that creatures will have. They're just little certain things. And I'll just go through a bunch of what these are here. So fast means it doesn't have stasis when it enters the field. Sentinel means it doesn't turn when it's attacking. Pierce is any extra damage that is overage that it just goes through to the player. So if I had a creature that was a 3/3 and hit a 2/2, that extra 1 damage would go roll over to the player. Next is Fatal, which is a kill on contact, meaning that if I was to go and have a 1/1 creature hit a 10/10 creature, that 10/10 creature would still die, because it doesn't matter what the defense is, it is going to kill it because it's got Fatal. Pack is an attribute where you want to go and have more of something, where there's a number that needs to get satisfied, and you can have more of that so creatures can get buffs or attributes or abilities or whatever. A good example of that is the card Winged Blackpool Piranha, where the Winged Blackpool Piranha is a 1 attack and 1 defense. And basically, if it goes and gets 4 of those on the field or more, it becomes into a 3 attack, 2 defense. So that's how that works. And that card has preemptive, which, whoa, look at that. We've got preemptive next. And preemptive means it is a speed thing when it comes to combat. So preemptive will hit a creature first before normal damage. So basically it hits before the other one hits. And then final right here is the last of what is to hit. It goes after normal damage. So the speed of combat basically goes preemptive, then normal damage, then final damage. Which brings me to dual hit. So dual hit is the full attack power hitting a creature twice, is how that works. And normally how it is the preemptive speed hitting and then the normal speed hitting. Now, this could be other ways as well, where it could be, say, normal speed, then final speed, or preemptive speed, then final speed, but that would normally be noted. And then triple hit is all 3, where it is the preemptive, the normal, and the final damage all hitting for the full attack power at a creature. Then there's sudden, which is basically where a card can be cast out the way an instant would be played. So if you have that, you can do it in response to something. You can do it as, say, like it is the advancing of a phase, whatever. You can go and do that. So it can be on either player's turn. Then next is association. Now, association has to deal with the hierarchy, the general type, the factions, the etc. Basically, this means if your card has an association with something like, say it gets an enchantment on it, it might say like, the card is now associated with the water faction. Or if, you have a creature that makes something become a vampire, it is that faction as well now. So it just adds to that hierarchy. That's all that does. So association is pretty cool that way. Next is the attribute Juggernaut, which Juggernaut means that the creature that is attacking must be blocked by more than one creature. So it has a number, like say if it's the number 3, right? It needs to be blocked by 3 creatures, or if it cannot be blocked by 3 creatures, that damage is just, it's going to hit to the player. So that's how that works. But then there's a reverse, which is barrier, and barrier can stop the number of creatures that are attacking. So if it says barrier 3 and there's 3 creatures that are attacking, that barrier 3 creature is going to stop those 3 creatures. It can also say if it was a Juggernaut that has a Juggernaut of 3 and there's a barrier of 3, it can then stop that Juggernaut of 3. So that's how barrier is for that. Next is poisonous, which if a poisonous creature hits a player, it delivers that many units of poison to the player, which I'll talk about what poison does in a little bit, but it will give the player so many units of poison that are noted with that creature. Next is drain, and drain is the amount of damage that a creature does for its attack. It will give the player life points. So if there's a creature that is a 3/3 creature and it hits the player, you will gain 3 life for the damage that it inflicted. So there you go. Absorb is basically the reverse in a way, but with when it comes to magic damage. So absorbing means that the player will gain life for the amount of damage that you would end up taking to that creature. So that's what happens there. Now, the damage for that creature is usually nullified unless if it's, noted of sort, but it's usually that. And anytime there is something of that, it will always go and have like a damage trigger of some sort that could go off if there was a damage trigger that was in place. So it doesn't matter, it could be still not take damage, but it's the fact it got hit and that was the reaction to it. So next would be Stone Touch. Stone Touch just means that if a creature with Stone Touch hits another creature, that creature that was hit turns to stone. And then there is Stone Proof, which means the creature is not able to be turned to stone. So there you go. And then here comes targeting. Now, targeting I've talked about a bunch before. Targeting means that a creature can target another creature or whatever. It doesn't have to where the attack goes to the player. That creature can target another creature on the field. So that's how that would work. That damage would go to there, is how that would work. And then you have anti-targeting, which is where any alchemic ability or physical attack or ability like a force fight won't be able to go and happen. But magical spells will be able to go and happen to something that has anti-targeting. However, with spell proof is where nothing can be targeted with magic spells or abilities. So that is the other way of things where something that can target something physically can do something against spellproof. Something to note about anti-targeting and spellproof is you can go and cast spells and abilities on your own creatures that do have those in effect that normally would be blocked by those attributes. So let's say that you wanted to cast Resilient Aspiration on a creature that has spell proof that is your own, so you can make it be fast and also have some sort of empowerment of be flying or magical or whatever. You could go and do that because it's your own creature. If you are playing a game where you are playing as partners, you could go and do that as well for that as well because it's your team. But, if it was not your teammate, you couldn't go and do that either. So anything that is a rival opponent, anti-targeting and spellproof just hold up. And then there's something called resistant. Now, resistant means that whatever in the faction of the hierarchy something can be resistant to. So if I have a creature that is resistant to fire, it won't be hurt by something of the hierarchy that's of fire. So that is that. There would be no damage, nothing there. But it would still go like how absorb would be, like maybe a trigger could go off because it would be something that'd be hit. But as said, like it would be resistant, so it wouldn't get damaged or anything like that. And then finally, there's immortal. Now, immortal means it cannot be destroyed. So any kind of damage where it takes it under 0 or like at 0 or under 0 would make it not die. It wouldn't die from death spells or anything like that. I mean, it could still be turned to stone. It could still be banished. You can still sacrifice it because that is doing that. But it can't be destroyed by regular means. So immortal means it just won't die. All right, so we are going to go over a bunch of the attributes and powers here visually, which is why you see a ton of creatures right here. So we're just going to go over what each one does in sequence. Here we go here. So if I was to cast out something with fast, this one has fast, which means that it has no stasis, so it gets to attack right away if I was to go and bring it out. So that's how that one goes. It gets to be able to do its abilities too. That's how fast is. So there's that. Next is Sentinel. When Sentinel goes and attacks, because this one has Sentinel, it also has fast, and it's poison too. But anyway, this one's got Sentinel. Basically, it attacks and it will not turn. That's how that works. So yeah, it does not turn for doing any attacking. So next we have Pierce, and Pierce here is basically any damage that is overage to something after its defense is gone. It will do damage to the player. So this skeleton has 2 attack and 2 defense. This bone dragon has 6 attack and 6 defense. So what that means is that if this skeleton was to block this dragon, it would be 6 against 2, which would mean 4 damage would go to this player over here. So that's how that works, and this guy obviously would die. So yeah, there's that. So next we have Fatal is what we have here, and this creature is he's a flying Fatal, but yeah. So if let's do this. Let's say that this creature here is a better example. This creature here being a 6/6, if this thing was to attack, because obviously it's a 2/2, if this thing was to attack and this thing was to block it, what would happen is this creature would, since it has Fatal, would kill this 6/6, even though that this one has lower attack to it, because Fatal kills things on contact. So that is how that would work. So next we have Pack, and with Pack we need to check the number of Pack here. So with Pack, you can see how this creature has, attack of 1 and defense of 2. But if there's 4 wolf creatures on the field, it gets an extra 3 attack and 2 defense. So basically it becomes 4/4. So right now it doesn't have Pack. But if we have 4 of these wolf boys right here out on the field, what happens? They have Pack, because it's 4/4 to, since there's 4 of them out. And if there's extra, then it's going to stay if one dies or something like that. So yeah, that's what Pack does. Pretty cool. You can get some different abilities and things like that too. So next is Preemptive. And Preemptive basically will, if a creature is to get hit first, that is Preemptive, and this creature right here has Preemptive. And what Preemptive does is, if the creature hits something, it will hit first. So this will get hit when this attacks, and this will do damage to that and first, and then normal damage will occur after that. So usually these you want bigger is how you want that to work, because then you kill the things before hitting you, is how that works. So next we are going to have Dual Hit, and this one is basically a Preemptive normal is how that works. So this thing would attack, it would hit first, and then it would do normal attack as well, and that's how that would work there. So if I had a big beefy guy there, this thing would probably kill it because that's just the way that would work. But so yeah, and then there could be other ones there. So let's say sudden. I'm gonna put this in my hand for the moment, and like let's say, oh, this guy is coming into it to attack me and whatever. You know, if you have sudden, you could cast it out because sudden is just like you could play a thing when it's an instant. So you get the guy on the field to come out, and you can block him. You can do whichever. You could cast this at the very end of somebody's turn. All that kind of stuff. Sudden's really, really cool for doing a lot of hijinks. So next we are going to check into association, which I'm going to just bring this guy forward for association. So we have here, if you look at the ability of this card, basically it will give a creature, drain, and make them a vampire. And neither of those will go away. So what will happen is, if that was the case where this thing was drained and became a vampire, if I had a certain card that helped vampires, well, this thing is a vampire now because it is in association with it. As you can see, like the hierarchy says creature, goblin, warrior, it would also be basically an extra type of how that would work. So it has association of vampire. So that is how that is. So we're going to go and we're going to use this card again. So we have here the Juggernaut ability, which basically it needs to be stopped by more than one creature. And this one needs to be stopped by two. So if this is attacking, this can't go and block it because there's no way for it to go and block. So what we have here is, like, let's say we had this, you know, and I was to attack. Well, then these could come in and block it because there's two creatures. So that's how that is. But there is also barrier, which barrier is the little bit of the reverse, as stated before, where let's say we had these guys up here, and we're going to give one more. So let's say that, you know, we had these three dudes attacking barrier because it can cancel out some Juggernaut. This would be able to at least block two of them because it would minus off things. He's a barrier 5, so and this is a 2, and here's a 2. So at least one would get through. But this one would at least block at least 2. If it was, say, this guy attacking here, that's definitely 5 there. So it would block all 3 is how that would work. So, and yeah, let's say it was, you know, 5 of these guys, because, you know, let's just make it a party, right? So 5 dudes are coming in to attack right here. This guy's gonna go and block all 5. That's how that would work. So it's pretty cool, pretty crazy. So there's that, and we'll clean up here. And then the next one is going to be poisonous. Now, poisonous is this guy right here. What he does is when he attacks, if you see the unit of poison, it's just 1 unit. So if this was to attack, this would make this go up right here as the poison counter, which would damage the player at their second upkeep, and that would be how that would work right there for the moment. So yeah, next is drain, and drain basically would go where when this thing attacks, and we'll have that guy like that. Sure, yeah, we'll do that. So if this guy was to go and attack, right here it has drain. So for its attack, which is 2, when it does damage, it will give us life points here. So it does 2 damage to the player, and we go up 2 life points. Or say if it was like this guy who is a 1/4. That 1/4, they bounce off each other, but it would still, give 2 life. So that works pretty good. So next is the ability of Absorb. Now, Absorb usually doesn't go and just be on creatures. It's just more or less, it's just in this instance of this creature because it's when it's blocking. So it's kind of like you can't really damage it kind of spell, because then I'm going to get life if that was the case. If this thing was to be attacking, say this thing was blocking, but then I had a damage spell, well, it would get nullified. I'd end up, let's say that damage spell was for 2 life. Okay, this guy is going to be alive, and that's it. I would get life out of that. Now, if it was a spell that turns it to stone or anything like that, then no go. That thing's going to, be turned to stone and all these other things. So yeah. Next is Stone Touch. Now, this guy he does Stone Touch, which will basically when it attacks this guy, let's say he's blocking, he attacks that's blocking this, no matter what it is, will get turned to stone. So it's turned to stone, going to be a statue. There's still going to be damage that'll inflict, but that'll turn into a statue now. So like next turn's coming up without it being cured will be in the background and no good. So that be that. Now here's this guy right here. So what is special about this guy? He is stone proof. That means he cannot be turned to stone. So let's say that this one was attacking this guy, and it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna attack him, he's gonna block. Well, yeah, he's not gonna get turned to stone. This thing will damage this guy here. So yeah, there's that. And here we go. So we have a couple more, which is, this is targeting. And this guy right here, let's say, it's a 2/2, it's a 3/4. Usually, let's say the player was like, we're just going to have it where I want the damage to go straight through. Well, this one's got targeting. This could be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to target that creature, and because, whatever. But all creatures attack at the same time, but this could go and target this creature, and this would be a 3/4, so this would kill it, and that would be how that works. So now creatures could multi-block and such as well to stop things, but that is how it generally is for the targeting. Now, there are creatures that are anti-targeting. So let's say that this guy right here, let's say that this guy was attacking and he wanted to try and attack him. Well, he can't attack him because he's got anti-targeting, because it's physicality going to him, and that won't work. It also couldn't work with if it was like, say, a stone getting thrown at him or any of that nature. So yeah, that would be how that would work. So, and then here is this, which this guy has spell proof. So let's say that there was a spell that somebody wanted to go and do on somebody. Let's just say we've got 2 of these for the sake of things. Let's say they did a link magic, because that's what those guys do. They do link magic. Then they targeted this guy. Well, couldn't go and do it because he is spell proof. And basically that means that he will not get hit by that spell. So they have nothing to target there. That's how that works. So sorry, will-o-wisps. Live to fight another day. And then finally, this guy right here has resistance. So basically, we'll just use these. Make it easy, because this is fireness right here. So let's say that these elemental resources right here, because they're fire, this guy is resistant to fire. Let's say that these shot a fireball of 2 fire at the creature. What would happen is it would be resistant and not get damaged. So there's that. Now let's say there's a creature that is made of fire or whatever over here. If that thing was to, and say it was a 10-10 creature. Let's say that this guy was a 10-10 creature and he was a fire creature and coming at me right now. This guy could block it. He'd take no damage, no nothing, because he's resistant. So there is that. And finally, this little doohickey is the best way to show it. So this thing makes creatures immortal. And so let's say that, once again, this guy is let's say he's a really big boy. Let's say he's a 12-12, right? 12, let's say he's like a 16-16 or something. And this guy, he's just a 3, right? But he's got this thing on it, which has got immortal. Well, he can stop it. He's not going to go and die because he's immortal. He's not going to die. But if something was to go and banish this guy off the field, then he is going to die. So, or let's say that something, hit this guy and his life total was totally down, and then somebody destroyed that thing, then yeah, he's dead because it just took away his immortality. So, but that is all the attributes, and there's more fun to come. Time to talk about empowerments. Now, there are 3 types of empowerments. There's flying, hiding, and magical. And basically, the reason for all these is creatures with these empowerments, they are trying to go and hit the player without being blocked, is really what's going on there. And yeah, there's some other abilities that happen with some of these too. So flying is the first empowerment, and I always say it's best to go and have a token ready so opponent players can go and see if your card is flying or not. It's very helpful. So if a card is on land that has this empowerment, it doesn't have the empowerment anymore until it goes back into the air. So you can cast these cards out as flying or on the ground for when you cast them. So do know that. But you can also put them into the air manually if they've already been out, or have them land manually. And you can do that once per turn. It's either or. You can't make something fly, then attack, and then have it go on land. You can't do that. But yeah, and when you put it into either the air by ascending or on the ground, they have stasis. So that is that too. But if they're flying, they won't be blocked, and the only way that they can get blocked is if there's creatures that can block them or whatever, or if there is another flying creature. So that is how that goes. And cards that are flying, when they're turned to stone, they land and then they are destroyed. So that's that, because they turn to a statue and then they shatter. The next empowerment is hiding, which means the creatures are stealthy, they're in the shadows, or they're underground, or whatever, where you know that they're there, but they're lurking around, but you don't see them. So that's how that works. With that being said, if a creature is not hidden, it doesn't have the empowerment. So there's that too. To show that a creature is hidden, it will be face down. And that will mean some things for future, because there's certain flip effect kind of things where they hide or emerge, hide effects that will happen there. So cards may hide or emerge manually once per turn. And after hiding or emerging manually, that card would be in stasis. So that is what happens, kind of like how you would ascend or land with flyer. So cards that are hidden, obviously they can't be blocked because they're stealthy, but they also can't be targeted by any kind of magic or ability of any kind. And that's including targeting as well. So they can't be with that. But there are a few exceptions that can seek that out. And there are also cards that can reveal these creatures. And one final thing is when a card hits another card or it hits the player, it emerges and it can't manually hide or emerge again for the rest of that turn. The last empowerment is magical, meaning these creatures are fantastical. They can walk through objects, things like that. So that's why they can't be blocked. It is best where players go and have a token for this kind of creature as well to show if they are magical or not, which that will be if a creature that is magical doesn't have an empowerment on it of magical, then it's not magical anymore, so that it doesn't have its empowerment. But the way that magical happens is at the beginning of a player's first upkeep, a creature will be magical until their next upkeep. They get a chance to choose, is how that works. So, yeah. And some cards are constantly magical. The card Aqua Shifter is constantly magical in its liquid form. Magically empowered creatures can not be targeted by any kind of physicality. So, like, anything that has targeting cannot hit them. They can only be really touched by anything that is magical. You can do some things that are alchemic to them, so that does work, but it can only be alchemic and magical spells, instants, and abilities. It can be nothing physical, no force fighting or anything like that. You can charm them to do some things, but that is the only other thing that could be as well. And remember that enchantments also can be placed on them as well, because that is a magical or alchemic type of thing as well. So I'm going to give you a little bit of visual of what's going on here. Let's say like this glacial wyvern right here, it can fly. If it was on the ground, it could be stopped by this creature here. But if it was where, it was flying, then it would just go right over it. This thing wouldn't be able to block at all. And there's that. So, but let's say that this thing attacked and this thing, which is also flying, went and stopped it. Yeah, that would end up stopping then. But either way, yeah. So like I said, cards that ascend or land, they would that's it. They can't go and attack right away, stuff like that. And let's say this card was flying. Well, if I went and played this card, which makes it a statue, basically, it would land and then it would die. So there's that. Bye-bye dragon, So there's that. But if it's on the ground and it gets turned into a statue, then, it's just nothing happens. It can't do anything. It can't move. It can't attack. It can't do anything. So there's that. But anyway, there are cards like this one, which is the giant worm. This is a creature that is hiding, and this card can go and enter the field as well, hidden. So there is that. The player needs to know what the stats are and things, and if it's got any certain quirks, but that's it. So this can come into the field hiding, but to show that something is hiding, once again, you just flip it right over. And if it was to just attack, well, that could go and stop it. But if it's hiding here, All it's got to do is it's hiding. It's got its stasis. Next turn would be like, oh, I'm just shooting on through. And when a card hits a player or a creature, it will flip like it says. So there's that. And then finally is this creature that is magical, and it just goes right on through. It can't do anything, whatever. But if it's at my first upkeep and I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna have it magical, then it would be able to be blocked. But there you go. You have creatures that are like Aqua Shifter here, who is constant. And you can see that in there in the text. It is constantly magical. So it will always be able to keep its empowerment on all the time. Thanks, guys, for checking out the portions of the rules. There will be more to come for next video. And thank you so much for having interest in the game. Remember to check out the Discord. You can go and see everything that we got going on and meet others that go and play the game. And then also remember to check out the game database with all the cards that you can go and see, which would be great for deck building. So cool. Remember, you can play the game on untap.in and also on Tabletop Simulator. Untap.in is free, and hope to see you soon. Thanks again.